Penultimate aftermath, the second last weekend of the MLR 2026 regular season sealed the fate of those playing fantasy MLR. Championship glory or finals heartbreak. James and I break all the matches down from week 10. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 196 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. We got ourselves another Rucking Rundown episode, which means the one and only James Dealey back here with us this week to help us break down what was an exciting weekend of rugby, the second to last regular season weekend of MLR 2026, calling this episode, James, the penultimate aftermath, because it might be the second to last weekend for regular MLR fans. For fantasy MLR fans, it was the weekend that decided it all in terms of whether people were either quite content after this weekend's matches or not so content. What's up, James?
It's the big dance for fantasy.
Exactly. How's everything going?
Not too bad. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still not Matt, still not Vandy. But happy to be here. And it's getting to crunch time now. It seems like every week is getting more and more critical. But yeah, that was a good weekend of rugby. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, no, we got obviously some pretty meaningful matchups that dictated a lot of how this, I guess, playoff picture is going to look like here in about a week plus time, but also determining what the heck needs to happen this coming up week to determine that last musical chair spot, which does appear to be the one and only spot remaining for a team bidding for the MLR playoffs. But getting ahead of ourselves, obviously, matches deciding how those other spots shaped up. So, of course, like James mentioned, we are going to talk about that on this episode, break down all three matches starting on Saturday, going into late into Sunday night, that had a little bit of everything, I feel like. And you and I, James, were texting back and forth, especially during that Chicago DC game, about maybe a little bit of
a lot to talk about.
Yeah, a little bit of clenching that was going on for me because I told you that I think a lot of the things that I said last episode that was going to age like milk if it had gone the way that it looked like it was going until Chicago did Chicago things.
Yeah, I mean that we'll get into it in a minute, but that's got to be the game of the season so far, regardless of the eventual outcome, which looks boring in the standings, but that was a cracker.
Yeah, absolutely. So that match, of course, and then with Anthem RC, California Legion, and then the Seattle Seawolves, New England Free Jacks Coffee Cup. We'll talk about that one as well. That does have some nuggets that we need to touch on there as well. So jam-packed episode. Again, this new format that we've picked up here towards the tail end of the season, and we'll continue moving forward here. 2 episodes a week. Start off the week with yours truly and James Dealey in our Rucking Rundown episode, where we fly through these matches, give everything that you need to know to get caught up with everything MLR that happened over the weekend. So when it comes to James, make sure you give him a follow at NARugbyDB on all your social media platforms, at MLR Stats, at Jam Delays, his personal account. Again, check out NARugbyDB.com, the most comprehensive rugby database when it comes to North American competition that you'll find around, continually being updated. Let me tell you from firsthand experience here as obviously the Fantasy Ruckers, huge supporters of that, been a huge part in what we have done over the years as well. And of course, you know what to do at the Fantasy Ruckers. Handles on the YouTube video if you're watching there. Down below in the description if you're listening on the pod. Check out the Discord community. James is there. I'm there. The rest of the boys are there having great conversations each and every weekend. And of course, thefantasyruckers.com, the official platform for Fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. All right, James, let's get into this episode. We start with some big news.
News dump.
All right, TFR episode 196 news dump. Let's get, I guess, the obvious out of the way. big wins. We'll break down the matches, but we do have two more spots locked up. We talked about Chicago locking up their playoff
Hmm.
spot forever ago, it feels
Yeah,
like.
about a
And
month ago.
finally, yeah, no kidding. But finally, two teams here following suit in both the Seattle Seawolves and California Legion officially clinching their playoff spots after their big wins over the weekend.
Yeah, that's three of the four playoff spots up for grabs have been spoken for, but only one of the teams is actually locked in. That's the Hounds. They've been locked into first place for, like we said, a month. But the Legion and Seattle are still they're still not gonna, they've got to rotate everyone and rest because they are still competing for a home semi-final, which in a league that's cash strapped is essential. Really curious about where California will play that game if they get
Mm,
it.
yeah,
Seattle we
interesting.
know, but we're quite curious about that, and it's in their hands really because they're 3 points up at the minute. They just need, they need 2 points.
Yeah, so it
Unless
should be
Seattle
interesting.
managed to beat them by something like 77, which I don't think is
Yeah, yeah. Hey, crazier things have happened, or maybe
mathematically
we can.
possible.
I guess so. I guess so. And we always can know that we can uh count on you on doing that math. So there you go. Now you know what needs to be done for that to switch out here. Either
Mhm.
way, again, like James mentioned, three of the four spots locked in there. Obviously, outside of Chicago, we'll see how that all shuffles up with the matches coming up in this final week of the regular season. And again, that last musical chair spot for the playoffs still up for grabs. Only other piece of news, James, that I want to touch on is something that you
Mhm.
tweeted out here, literally not too long before we started recording this show here, is the announcement from Edinburgh Rugby that following the end of MLR 2026, a familiar name that we've become acquainted with here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show, and a guy that has been pretty impactful for the New England Free Jacks,
Yep.
will be heading overseas on a 1 year deal to join Edinburgh, and that is Keenan Higgins, who, of course, we've all had a lot of fun watching this season, and he'll continue to do that there with Edinburgh.
Yeah, so Keenan Higgins, he's a Kiwi centre primarily. He actually joined Edinburgh on a really short-term contract prior to the start of the MLR season, and then joined up with the Free Jacks, I think, a week before the season started. So he's been there already. He clearly impressed there and has earned himself a 1 year 1 year deal in the URC. Funnily enough, his brother also plays there. I think his name's Riley Higgins, so he's joining his brother in the Scottish capital. So that's pretty cool. But he has been one of the Free Jacks standouts. He's the only back with over 100 tackles made this season. He's got over 300 meters. He's only one try, which is a bit strange, but
Yeah.
started all eight of his games. Def Defenders beaten 13. That's pretty good. He's been a standout for New England in a season that's, you know, possibly one to forget, but we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, double digit tackles in every single match that he's
Yeah.
played, except for two of them. And he has a season high 19 in rounds five. But yeah, coming off his second best fantasy performance over the past weekend, that we'll obviously get into with 13.7 fantasy points. But again, not surprising that Keenan Higgins is finding work elsewhere here following the MLR 2026 season. And I've always been a proponent of this, James. And I don't know if we've gone into much depth on this show with you being here. Since then, it's something I've talked with my brother a lot about. This is what the MLR is all about in terms of giving a stepping stone for players, whether international or domestic, to have a chance of showcasing their talent on
Hmm.
this stage and then using that to propel them to higher and higher stages or continue that kind of pedigree of work here moving forward. Again, Keenan Higgins, having played with Edinburgh, come back, continue that solid play, and earns himself another 1 year deal. We've seen no shortage of players being able to do that. And I'm sure as we get towards the tail end of the season, especially for that other team, maybe not as many Anthem Rugby Carolina players, but that other team that does outside looking in the playoffs, to see some other players that do sign some of these
Hmm.
short year terms to continue the rugby playing overseas. Again, it's something that we've come quite familiar with. And honestly, through all the turmoil, James, with this league, and obviously we have had our criticisms in the past about the ups and downs that we've gone through, losing teams, gaining teams, everything in between, that this has been one thing that's been very, very positive, is that it has been a stepping stone for players. And as a players podcast where we love to highlight
Hmm.
the name and the players themselves and get you, our listeners and viewers, to know these guys, it is fun to see these guys taking that next step. And it's always cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, this is a textbook kind of stepping stone route. He played in the NPC, a recruiting ground for lots of MLR
Hmm.
teams, especially the Free Jacks, with Ryan Martin at the helm, who's coached Northland in the NPC. He's been there, done that. Then come over, play for New England, earn a URC deal. It's quite it's textbook. Like I said, it's what that tends to happen, especially now that this is a prime example. Usually happens a lot more often because there's fewer foreign players in the league this year. But this is what happens in MLR, and it means that these guys can keep playing all year round.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, congratulations to Keenan Higgins for his 1 year deal there overseas, and again, the first of what I would expect many to be announced here as the MLR 2026 season wraps up, and as we continue to get further into the off season. All right. Well, with that being said, hey James, before we get into breaking down these matches,
Mm.
do have a big update from a fantasy standpoint for our listeners because
Oh
it
yeah.
is time to crown some champions.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
So hear ye, hear ye, here is Supreme Commissioner Yi with a championship proclamation that I have to announce to all of the fantasy MLR players out there. I mean, first of all, what a season we had. I mean, I know whole bunch of stuff that went on for us to kind of grind our way through this. But James, it's been a fun one. I know heartbreak for you, but hey, finishing off with a dub on your end in the OG League, taking on the Titan that is former MLR player and MLR champion Andrew Ko, who we thought was going to be another champion in our books from the fantasy sense of things, ended up falling short and getting upset there in the
Yeah, I think
semis.
that's
But
is that the
look at
that
you.
is that 3 games in a row that Co lost after winning the first five or something, including
That
both
might
playoffs?
be. That might be.
I
Talk
thought
about.
I
I
was
thought.
I thought I was done, honestly. I had a few players that got a yellow card. Thankfully, one of them was Bertrand, who still managed to get points. Like I thought I was done. I'm
Yeah.
pleasantly
Well,
surprised that I take home the bronze there.
when we bring friend of the show Andrew Coe on, we'll have to talk about what was, I guess, a pretty big choke job on his part because it was all but locked in for him. But hey, you still got to get it done, and that's fantasy for you. Well, hey, to your dismay though, James, and to your unfortunate expense, we're not here to talk about the third place finishers. We're here to talk
No,
about the championship finishers, of course. So
I would like to
again,
say I did score more points than either of the team in the final, so I am pretty bitter about that. There we
okay,
go.
well, it makes put pour more salt into the wound, right, James?
Yeah.
That's exactly how it will work. I would see
Hmm.
no other way. Either way, again, just want to give a huge shout out to all of our fantasy MLR players this season. Had so many of you guys come and return. Had a bunch of new faces in there this year. We had a whopping, including our OG league, a season high 8 fantasy leagues that we had going, which was a lot of fun to see. And yeah, let's distribute some championships. So again, in the final of the Scrum and Coke League, congratulations to Scattered Rattlers beating the Gullah Back Girls, our very own. I guess not a very good weekend for anyone related to the Fantasy Ruckers Show because Gullah Back Girls, as you all know, Stephen Lowen, our community moderator, not doing too hot. Scattered Rattlers, congratulations to you out there in the Ruck this league. Rick in a Box taking on Victoria's Secret and Rick in a Box. Great name, by the way. That's fantastic. Going running away with this, which was
Is
fantastic to see
that must be
as
my man
well.
Rick Collins, is it?
That is your man, Rick Collins. That
Top
is, and
work,
look at
Rick.
him,
Well
and
done.
he might have actually 2 championships because if you look in the Rocket
Yeah, I
Bucket
know.
League, he took over a team but fell short. Couldn't have too much of it. Fall short 96.4 to the State of Jefferson's second regiment, who is a guy that has been a huge fantasy supporter. Pierce been fantastic. Takes down Rick there in
That
that
that's a
other
huge
final.
that's a huge score in the final. What a
That
time.
that that is a huge score in the final. And then just a couple more to go through the Try Hards League. Congratulations to Stevesy's team who comes away with the win there, and then also in the Louisville Mall Naughty's Deep Dish League, I think one of our best leagues there takes down our analytics guru. So James, just like you, a guy that relies on the numbers, falling short. So I mean, who needs analytics? Who needs numbers?
Uh,
Nick Johnson falls short to CJ Rugger's team in a pretty big final there as well. And then lastly, our brand new league in Project Fantasy Sports, who likes to emulate all the teams. So this is very cool. Their final, not sure it was the final that we're ever going to see, but Anthem Rugby Carolina taking on the Chicago Hounds. It is
Anthem.
Anthem Rugby
Anthem
Carolina
win.
that come out on top. So in some alternate universe, um, the commissioner of that league, who also decided to take over Anthem Rugby Carolina, wins that. So that's pretty funny to see. There's a reason why I saved two for last, though, James. The listener league, yours truly, undefeated all season long.
Boring.
What can I say? Can't take down the Supreme Commissioner who puts up a decent outing and wins by 5 points. Give a shout out to Hawks58 there. Very kind message there on Discord. But again, back-to-back years now that someone from the Fantasy Ruckers Show has won this league. So
I like
listener,
that. I like that cheeky pick of Cyril Kama in the front row there because he
right?
was
You
playing
like that?
flanker.
League
That's a
winner
good
there you
spot.
go. That's see, I know what I'm doing here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. I'm more than just
You
a
probably
pretty
should
face,
really.
I guess. Yeah, honestly, for as long as I've been doing the late nights that I've been spending doing this, yeah, a little bit too much. And then to our dismay and reluctantly, I got to say, in our OG league, of course, the league that everyone loves to follow, have some of the greatest community MLR contributors out there. Down the list, of course, got John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning. As we just talked about, Andrew Coe, former MLR player, of course, you, James,
Hmm.
ourselves, the Fantasy Ruckers, Bill Baker's American Rugby Rising, who, of course, we did the final with last season in our pregame show and coverage there. But I saved this name for last. Matt McCarthy and Zach Lanning of the Rugby Wrap Up team go from a year ago, or should I say 2 years ago? All my years get mixed up. Picking Dan Holland's head as their number one pick, which we think is the biggest pick blunder in the history of picks to go in the first round, make up for it in their first fantasy MLR championship in all of their history of doing this thing. And they've been one of the OGs. We talk about OGs. Rugby Wrap Up has been there since the beginning. And of course, you see Matt McCarthy out there creating great content with MLR Weekly and making appearances on Sunday Night Rugby. He finally can add to his resume, and that is a Fantasy Ruckers MLR champion.
Uh, I mean,
I have the
congrats,
same
Matt.
reaction.
Congrats, Nat. Zach.
Uh,
But
I gave him a call this morning or earlier today, and let me tell you, it was a tough phone call to make. But either way, well deserved as well. And of course, hey, we're gonna have Matt McCarthy and Zach Lanning on the show here. Later this week on our Thursday episode. So make sure to
mm,
catch that. We'll talk about their fantasy championship and their journey, and I'm sure some words that won't annoy me, right? I'm hard to be phased. No, I'm gonna be absolutely
yeah,
tilted on that episode.
Matt McCarthy is known for just, not riling anyone up ever. Yeah.
Exactly. So make sure to check that out. That'll come out later this week. But with that being said, though, again, congratulations to all our winners and thank you if you played Fantasy MLR this season. Hard to think that it is all wrapped up as we head into the final week of MLR 2026 regular season. But with that being
Mhm.
said, James, hey, no more time to waste. Let's get right into breaking down these
Let's do
three
it.
matches from week 10.
Quick Tap Recap.
All right, week 10 quick tap recap. A fun one. Fun matches,
Definitely.
ones that we probably thought weren't going to go the way that they went, but it made for some entertaining watch over the weekend. And again, sets up for a MLR 2026 finale that has one playoff musical chair remaining. And of course, that fight is going to happen to those bottom three teams that have yet to clinch the playoffs. But let's talk about how we got there. So we'll start off, James, with that first match on Saturday. Old
Mhm.
Glory DC taking on the Chicago Hounds. And let me tell you, as this match continued to go, we kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the show. I was feeling a huge pit in my stomach because I thought I was going to have to come on the show and have a massive, massive apology to not only all Old Glory DC fans out there, but also to our very own website guru, Alistair Kirsch-Poole, who is obviously a huge Old Glory DC fan, goes to every single match. Almost felt like I was going to have to backtrack a whole lot on this episode. But thankfully, due to maybe a last 20 minutes that the Old Glory DC team has looked quite familiar in matches before, which we'll get into. They end up falling short here, 33-32. But nonetheless, a 1 point victory was not on my week 10 bingo card here for the Chicago Hounds and Old Glory DC match on Saturday.
No, I mean, I said it off the top of the show. Like, I think this was probably the game of the season.
Mm,
Just the way that Old Glory DC sort of took it by the scruff of the neck and just went, we don't care if you're undefeated. We don't care if you're beating every team by 35 points. We
yeah.
are going to win this game. and it looked for most of the game like they were gonna. Um, it was a weird one because like I think Old Glory DC are not used to being in the position of having more territory and more possession, and I think towards the middle of the game, they're not even particularly used to holding to being in the lead, or especially in
Yeah.
the lead the size of the what they earned. But I think as the game kind of went on, the Hounds. I don't know if it's the fact that the Hounds just proved to be fitter because I'm not sure that's entirely fair, but they definitely started to kind of grind their way back into it, and by the end, by the final 10 minutes, even when Chicago went up with that, Mason Flesh's second try in a
Hmm.
5 minute span, by the way, crazy. Um, they looked gutted. They looked exhausted. Even at every whistle, they were like hands on their heads, hands on their hips. They looked knackered, and I'm not sure if that's because of. I mean, tackles were about even, so I'm not sure it's necessarily a massive defensive swing, but I mean, it was a superb game. I mean, there's so much to say about it. I can
Yeah.
keep going for
I
ages,
mean,
but
32 to 19. Talk about not
yes,
being
yeah,
like used to being in that situation. I mean, I don't think anyone thought that DC with just 20 minutes to play was going to be up by 13 points there. And it did.
Mhm.
It really did feel like DC had a very, very, very good chance of being the team that tarnished what has been a perfect season for the Chicago Hounds. Now, I think there's two ways to look at this, in my opinion. Chicago and how concerned you can be over. I guess I'll start it with this one. I think what this proves, James, and you tell me if you agree with me. This proves that it's possible that
They're
it's not that
beatable.
they're beatable and not that it happened in this match,
Mhm.
but for 60 minutes, it looked like Chicago was going to be beaten,
We're
which
human, yeah.
exactly. And you saw that there was a way and a pathway for maybe not for everyone to have Chicago etched already onto that MLR shield at the end of this season.
Yeah,
However,
I mean, it's go on, go on.
no, I was just going to say the kind of flip side to that though is that this also is just as impressive though that the Chicago Hounds stayed as resilient as they
Yeah,
were to come back from a 32 to 19 deficit with just
yeah.
20 minutes to play and end up winning the match by one, which then almost in a weird way flips the script on its head where you're like, oh crap, like even if what you really
You can't
can't
turn off for a second. You have to, like you were
exactly.
saying, was it last week, a couple of weeks ago? You have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And like there was a DC conceded 8 penalties or something, which is great. It's really
Hmm.
good. Actually, they conceded less than the Hounds, but you have to be perfect. So, I mean, just the dynamics of this, like Chicago scored first in the first 5 minutes, and I'm like,
Here we
here we
go.
go, here we go, yeah. But then Rizzo comes back. Rizzo had a fantastic game. He's had a great season. Old Glory DC didn't let the Hounds kind of build on that momentum from the early try, and then they raced out to what was it 26-19 by the kind of 50-minute markish, and then they choose to go for two penalties, which is pretty unusual this season. It's pretty rare to see penalties, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that was necessary. Well, I am actually going to say I think that was the wrong decision. I don't think that Robertson was ever going to miss them,
Hmm.
but I think that was the wrong decision for DC. I mean, you are on top, you have the momentum. Chicago are conceding penalties. Why not go for the corner? There's 25 minutes left of the game.
Yeah.
Go for the corner. You're going to get another chance. One try there instead of a penalty, you win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I honestly, to maybe your surprise, I've always been a proponent of, especially when you're against a team like Chicago, to get points when you need them,
But
because you can
yes,
go that.
I think in previous weeks I would
Yeah,
probably agree with you. But this week, DC had their number. And in
yeah,
fact, if we look at the season as a whole,
hmm,
DC have been the team that challenged. They were the first challenge to the first real challenge that wasn't just a speed bump for
yeah,
Chicago. That was in Chicago. Now this is in DC, even closer.
yeah,
Simon Cross said that they have the game plan to beat the Hounds, and they didn't. But they came fucking close.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like the weird thing to me here is, in a vacuum, the Hounds would probably rather play DC. But given how difficult that DC have
yeah,
been for the Hounds this season, Do the Hounds rather want to play the Free Jacks? Because I wouldn't want to
It's
play the Free Jacks in the playoffs ever.
yeah.
But
It's a fair question. It's a fair question. And again, it's makes I guess this weekend that much more interesting because again, Chicago has everything locked up in their sense of it, and they're going
mhm.
to be sitting and watching and trying to figure out what the heck do we want heading into this one.
The
It'll
Hounds play the Free Jacks. We'll see if they just hand them a win or not. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think they're going to be
yeah.
doing that.
No,
They
no.
want
I and
revenge. They want to demolish the Free Jacks, I think.
I agree too, and it's statement game as well
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that. Yeah. So I think overall, I think again, interesting takeaways here. Old Glory DC. I think again, I think I said this last episode. I don't believe in moral victories, but this is as close to a moral victory that you can get with confidence,
Yeah,
knowing
you
if
said
you
that about Chicago last week, didn't
right,
you?
and it's funny because again, it's easier to say that because we know that New England lost. So like you're like if New England wins that game against Seattle,
Oh,
we're like
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
here like oh my God, like Old Glory DC had it in their grasp
Seattle,
to
we'll get onto it later, but Seattle did them a massive favor in that game.
yeah, exactly. So we can say this here because of knowing that result, but
Mhm.
at the time, obviously they didn't know it. But Old Glory DC, I think they have a lot of confidence to build from this game, and should they find a way to get into the playoffs, yeah, apparently they have a game plan that at least makes it not just a chalk up to Chicago. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah,
Fantasy
yeah.
wise, though, handful of big time performers in this one. We'll start with DC side of things. John Rizzo. I don't know what his act for finding the try line is so far this season because he's been actually very like, and it comes in bunches, right? Like he just finds a way to score a whole bunch, and he does that this past week. 21.4 fantasy points with his second brace of the year, and you tack on
Hmm.
84 meters and 10 tackles on top of that. Impressive stuff. Corey Daniel, again, tackle machine,
Money in
15
the bank.
tackles. Look at
Yeah.
those numbers, man. Like it's incredible what he does
10.
from a
Oh,
defensive
that's a low
standpoint.
one there.
That's a low one for, and that's crazy because you're like, oh, that's an outlier for that. But I mean, 3 straight weeks where he's gone in above 15. He's had more than 15 tackles in all but two matches.
Yeah,
That's
his
crazy.
career average is 15.6 tackles. He's the fastest player ever to 1,000 tackles in
It,
65 games is
it's
stupid. We
so
need more
impressive.
wrestlers to play rugby because
Yeah.
this guy is a machine.
Yeah, fantasy managers I think would agree with you on that one as well. 13.7 in this one with his first try of the year. And then the first Chicago guy that we'll get to, those are the only two double-digit scores for DC, but Chicago Mason Flesh with his two tries,
Yeah, he had a
14.8.
fantastic game at lock actually this time.
Yeah.
So
What
he's
about
I
that
think
haircut, man?
I
Or
don't
I
know
should
what's going
say
on there. Is him and Mateen Alican have the same like haircut? I don't know what's going on there.
it must have been kangaroo court or something in that because there's no
He's
way that you're looking in the mirror and then you're like, this looks great.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
don't
rugby
know.
thing.
Maybe he's like,
It's
I
a
can't see
rugby.
the back of it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Someone else will get that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's having an absolute stormer of a season. I nearly took him out of my fantasy team because I saw he was playing lock, which is tends to be
Yeah.
where fantasy points go to die. But
Yeah.
really glad I didn't.
No. 8 tries on the year. And again,
Yeah,
he's had 3 matches where he scored 2 tries in that.
he's not
Mason
even the top
Flash this one.
scorer on the Hounds either.
Yeah, which I think it says a lot about a lot of things in
Yeah,
that sense. And then in terms of the other Chicago player, Theo Furry, I
who is
mean,
the top scorer on the
fantastic.
Hounds?
Which is
9.
crazy. It's nuts, man. It's nuts.
Yeah,
2 tries again. His third double tries game of the season. Theo Furry has been just an absolute joy to have on your fantasy team, and I think just as a whole, a great addition to Major League Rugby to see a
yeah,
guy of his caliber playing the way that he's been playing this season. And then good to see Lucas Rumble back in the mix. 11 and a half fantasy points in this one with 18 tackles
yeah.
and 51
Captain
meters.
Canada that he earned his fourth team of the week selection this week. He's only played 7 games, which is stupid.
And it's crazy. And having played that guy in club and high school rugby, it's not surprising why I've taken a few licks from that guy. That definitely makes you understand just the workhorse that he is on the
I'm glad
wing.
to say I haven't. I never want
Yeah,
to.
yeah. I wish I hadn't either. All right, let's go to the second match, the first match on Sunday. Anthem Rugby Carolina taking on the California Legion at home. 55-26 final in favor of the California Legion. I'm gonna get into it with Vandy tomorrow in our TFR betting challenge. I had no idea what Vegas was thinking,
Hmm.
but plus 275 underdogs. California was plus 2.5. I don't know what they thought the home crowd advantage was going to be, but let me tell you, a whole bunch of people, if you got on board with that, including myself, and according to John Payne, who says, "quote he put his mortgage down on that bet to turn that." I thought I messaged afterwards. I'm like, now knowing, kind of obviously hindsight is 2020, but we should have all put down the mortgage on it. Maybe would have been able to buy our own MLR team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that was the easiest bet you're ever gonna get, probably. I mean
Um,
that's bizarre. John Payne told me about that, and I
yeah.
thought he must be wrong.
Yeah, no. As soon as I got the note from him that that was what the line was sitting, I'm like, all right, we're double downing on this one.
All right, four
But
thousand
either
bucks on
way,
that. Yeah.
obviously, the results reflecting what we all thought was going to happen here. Anthem has just not looked how they were maybe expecting to look again. We talked about into depth, I think, last episode, James, about kind
Hmm.
of their expectations and things like that. I want to focus more on the California Legion side on things because let me tell you, man, it is so fun to watch this team when they are rolling on all cylinders. And I get it. I
Yep.
get it. It's against Anthem Rugby Carolina, where probably five of the other teams would look at their best playing them. But just the style that they play, how dynamic it is,
The
just
run
looking
everything is way
everything.
more fun than a
Like,
kick battle.
and I wrote down in my notes here. There's no other team in the entire league that would tap and go from within their 10 meters and take it 40 meters up the field and take it out of harm's way,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like
just
a
it just
coach,
works. It always seems
uh,
to work.
any coach, like I remember my club days and I thought I was top stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll quick tap this and I'll go take it 40 meters. And then I'd get stuffed there within 5 meters of me trying to get off there. Now, mind you, I'm not as fast as Gonzalo Bertranu and or Joe Mono or any of the players on that team. But let me tell you, coaches were not happy when I gave that a go. It seems like the California Legion, though, are encouraged to be doing this, and it seems to be
Yeah.
working, at least in this past match.
Yeah, I mean it is the most entertaining they are the most entertaining team, I think, to watch this season. The Chicago
Mhm.
Hounds have an element of that where they can just go,
Sure.
we're done playing now. Here we go. We're gonna win. But the Legion, just everything is entertaining. Everything is kind of like, I wouldn't say quite as entertaining as like watching Fiji play sevens. Like, it's just nuts. It's just crazy what they
Yes.
can do with. I mean, I think most of it comes from Gonzalo Bertrano. I think he's probably the
Hmm.
best player in the league, but it's fun, and that's what we want as MLR fans. Like, hey, look at this. This is fun rugby.
It,
Look at it.
it's the rugby that if I had a first time watcher of rugby, like if I
Yeah,
wanted to get someone into rugby and I had to choose an MLR team to for them to watch, it would be the California Legion
probably
because
right.
that
Yeah.
it's and I'm not saying that is it. It is a style of rugby that can blow up in your face. We've seen it happen where when it's not
Hmm.
working or if the
Hmm.
elements are not playing in their favor, like it can go the completely opposite way. Was not the case this past weekend. And again, to your point, James, like their open field play, I think that's where you get probably the Fiji sevens element to it, where
Yeah,
they're just looking
definitely.
for offloads and looking for space for them to
Hmm.
keep the play going. It is just electric. And let me tell you, touched on him, so let's get into him more. Gonzalo Bertranu, man, like when he had that try assist with the kick to Stephen
Oh,
Crimp the first time, I
yeah,
was
the first time.
incredible. And then he does it again with an over the top box kick that spots Stephen Crimp again, which I think maybe from a fantasy sense, we'll get into Stephen Crimp's almost performance of the year in any players with
Hmm.
37.2. He needs to be dishing some of those points to Gonzalo Bertrand because Bertrand was a big part of that. But I mean, just again, I don't think it's a hyperbole to say and agree with you, James, that yeah, I think he is the best player in MLR.
Yeah, I mean, he controls that Chicago, Jesus, the California Legion attack so well, and
Yeah.
everyone knows exactly what they're doing. They're just going to be like, Gonzo's got the ball, prepare for anything, and they're better prepared. I mean, they have been tested defensively the last couple of weeks. I mean, even the start of this one was all Anthem,
Yeah.
and I actually tweeted something out after about 20 minutes saying Anthem have 62% possession or whatever it is, and are down 14-0. because
Yeah.
that's California Legion rugby, baby. Like, oh, we've got the ball. Oh, we scored. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't need a
Yeah.
lot of time. And I mean, it does seem like, remember, Anthem beat the Legion in the first game of the season. It was the first game that the Legion have
Hmm.
ever played together, but
Hmm.
the Legion are coming into form at the right time, I think. And I'm pretty certain that I wouldn't put the mortgage, but I would put money on them locking up the second place this next week.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely right there with you, man.
I
I don't
think
know. Is there anything from the Anthem side you want to touch on in
I
this?
think they're done. I mean, I said maybe the last 2 weeks they've turned into a pumpkin again. Their anthem of old. What was the halftime score? Um, 33-7 to the
Hmm.
Legion. They were done
Yeah.
after that, and I mean, there was some stupid stuff like they're playing for their season and they get a yellow card for backchat in their own
Yeah.
22.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. Yeah.
Makeen Ali Khan, who I think needs to control his temper anyway, because there's a few games this season where the ref has been like, shut him up to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Hampton captain. This time he got punished for it, two yellows and a red. We're not seeing him again. They're not mathematically eliminated, but they need a bonus point win over who do they play? DC, I think.
They are playing DC. Yeah.
So I don't see that happening. I mean, if they do it, then wow. But I don't. Nothing in the last 4 or 5 games has given me any reason to think that they're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're now
Talk
on a
about
six-game
being
losing streak.
Yeah, talk about the trajectory. Like you're talking about California being on the up and up, and Anthem has been on the downhill for quite some time, and it sucks because I think there was a lot of
Anthem is everyone's second team, I think.
yeah,
Unless you're obviously in Carolina, in which case he's first team.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
think that it's everyone's second team.
It's the
Everyone wants to
sweetheart.
see them do
Everyone
well.
wants them to see them do
And
well because
it's
obviously,
sort of what I said last week is this is the team that has the most players in the USA squad at the minute.
yeah, yeah,
Mm, doesn't
yeah,
feel too good, but
yeah, yeah,
we'll have to wait and see.
yeah,
They
yeah.
are they got to try a bonus point, which means they now have more points than they're in the previous 2 seasons combined. 13.
At the end of the day, we'll look at this season, and to be honest, we probably like it was their worst. It was their worst enemy that they started off the season the way they did because they got the win out of the way so early, and I think just optimism on this team skyrocketed, right? And it has made the fall from grace that much harder. And I don't want to say that there was any potential for this Anthem team to be anything but where they are now. I think their true colors have come out. It is great. I think if you tell anyone that finally Anthem has got their win, you'd be like, okay, all right. So at least they got that monkey off their back. I think they can kind of move forward here and start trying to reach for that next step. But again,
I
I
think
do
I
agree
think
with you.
part of they have had a tendency to trail off from not great in the previous years. They've trailed off
Yeah.
in the tail end of the season. It looks
Hmm.
like they've kind of done that again. They started really strong. They were two wins from three, and then have just they're losing games out for the rest of the season. But
Yeah.
it does
I
seem like
wonder,
the
I wonder
sprint of
how
this
much that,
season is really
yeah.
taking its toll, which is bizarre to say because they were one of the two teams with a mid-season bye, which I thought was going to
Yeah.
really help them.
Hmm.
It did the opposite, I think.
Not the case. I wonder how much that has to do because obviously there's so much experience in other leagues on other teams.
Mhm.
How much that kind of experience of going through a grueling season kind of plays a role into that because again, outside of maybe a handful of guys and guys that have been through the MLR gauntlet, like a lot of this is brand new for a certain amount of people, at least relatively new. So interesting to
Yeah.
see there. Either way, in this match from a fantasy sense, top four guys in this one are all California Legion players. When you're going 55 points, of course you're gonna do that. Starts with Stephen Crimp, 37.2 fantasy points, up there, if not at the top when it comes to fantasy MLR performances of the year. Hat trick of tries, 148 meters gain. You add a try assist and 8 tackles. Again, thank you, Gonzalo Bertrano. Stephen Crimp needs to be getting him something for
Player
that.
player of the week. It's only
Yeah.
the second hat trick this season, I think, which is kind of
Okay.
weird, and the first hat trick in Legion history because
Wow.
they're 9 games old.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. 16.1 for Nick Chan. Good to see him back. Haven't
He was
seen
a
him
last minute.
since
He
round
was a
one.
last minute pickup for me. I was pretty pleased about that.
Yeah, 16.1 fantasy points. Cole Simu, 15.5 for him. And then, of course, we talked about him, Gonzalo Bertranu with 14.9. Anthem
That's
Rugby
that's
Carolina.
Vetrano is 14.9 points with a yellow card.
Yes, I saw that because when I was calculating through this, the yellow card inputted first. And I'm like, oh, or he's like in the middle of his stats. And it was like, man, he's still positive numbers. And we still have to add in everything else that needs to go a part of that. So,
Yeah, I think I went to get a drink or something, came back and Vetrano had been given a yellow card, and I was like, oh, I think I've probably just lost that. Oh no, he
yeah,
still got me
yeah.
15 points. Cool.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Anthem Rugby Carolina side of things, Jordan Trainer, 14.3 for
Good
him.
game.
Solid game from the fullback there for Anthem Rugby Carolina. Baden Godfrey had that sneaky try there. That was pretty solid. Probably their play of the game. 14.3 fantasy points for him. And then Zion Going scoring in two tries for himself was able to get him to 13.9 coming off of the bench to make the game a lot closer than what it actually was. All right, let's go into the last match. James here to break down the Coffee Cup between the Seattle Seawolves and New England Free Jacks. 36-28 victory for the home team. Now, you're going to look at this score, and if you didn't pay attention to the matches that happened over the weekend, you may be like, "Oh, okay, like this was a pretty close fight." No, Seattle was up by quite a big margin for most of the game. They made it a lot closer than it needed to be, which does highlight an issue that I think that Seattle does have that is going to bite them in the butt come playoff time. We'll get into that, but overall thoughts on this match there, James.
I mean, it's probably, I know it used to be the Seattle Seawolves against the San Diego Legion was kind of like the big crunch match of MLR. I
Hmm.
think now it's this one, the Seawolves against the Free Jacks. Multi-shield melee, I like to call it, because they're the only
I
teams in
like
the
it.
competition actually with shields now.
Yeah.
But playing into Quilla is tough, man. For the Free Jacks that are still kind of struggling to get anything moving, momentum wise, both within a game and within the season. I don't think they've won two games in a row. The Free Jacks, which is kind of weird to say about the three-peat champions, but
Yeah.
you're right. It wasn't as close as the scoreline suggests, even though the Free Jacks did have more territory and possession. The Seawolves were up, but considering the first half, which was 7-7 at halftime,
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be an absolute slugfest, but it really
Yeah.
opened up in the second half.
Hmm.
Seattle ran out to what was it, 33-14 or something,
Hmm.
and
33-14.
the Free Jacks got two late tries. It's funny to assess. It's hard to assess the Free Jacks, man. They have moments where they look like the Free Jacks of the last few years. That Ben Lesage try, kind of just out of nowhere, like, oh, yeah, there they
Yep.
are. And then the rest of it, ah, it's not
It
there.
it
I don't.
it is a reflection to me on the concerns that we had heading into this season because the
Yeah.
elements are there, right? The
Mhm.
framework on which the Free Jacks have been built on in this whole run of success that they've had over the course of the past 3 years and beyond is still there. It's not like that's disappeared, but it did feel like heading into this season was them dealing with the most change
Yeah.
that they've ever had. And part of that we've talked about it about the domestic eligibility changes and things like that. They've also had obviously departures of some key pieces, Jason Putros, LaRue Milan, guys like that. Um, but it felt like there were a lot of new faces in key places that
Hmm.
if it's rolling and they're clicking and the chemistry feels to be there, they can be the team that has won three straight MLR championships. However, that lull that they have when they're not
Hmm.
clicking is so much lower than what it's been in the past, and it's really hard for them to overcome that. It feels like this season and the way it's played out.
Yeah. I mean, this team beat the Legion this season, right?
Yeah.
Which is weird to think about now, but it's a sweep for the Seawolves against the Free Jacks. They just have the number this season, I guess. And you mentioned, Potros and LaRue Milan, just to pick up a few. They've actually filled those positions pretty well, I think, with Joel Hodgson, which is a
Hmm.
superb pickup, and Keenan Higgins, who we mentioned earlier. Um, they filled those positions pretty well. But like you were saying for Anthem, kind of when we're talking about them, a lot of the players for the Free Jacks are, I wouldn't necessarily say fringe NPC guys or fringe professional players. They're new professional players. You know, they played one season in the NPC, or they
Yeah,
played
yeah,
two and got like three or four caps in each year. Like they're still pretty. They're very young this year. They're still pretty new to a professional environment, and this is an entirely new system for them, like
yeah.
coming in and playing in the Free Jacks. It just I don't really know. It's not over till it's over, and I'm
It's
still
true.
going to say
It's
I'm
true.
not ruling out the Free Jacks because they are right there still.
Yeah,
But guess who they're playing next week?
yeah. A tough one. Chicago, the
Chicago.
Beast.
Yeah.
On the Seattle side of things, this is going to be their Achilles heel. They are so that starting 15 to me can compete with any starting 15 out there. Now, a lot of this is due to
Apart from
obviously the
JP Smith
injuries
on the
that they
fucking wing. What's that?
yeah. Um that is funny because there are obviously a lot of implications. There's both just as a MLR fan and then also as a fantasy MLR player as well in that sense. But that being said, though, obviously we've talked about this before, James, about the injuries that they've dealt with. Obviously,
Yeah.
Mark Bennett coming in, dealing with that.
Mhm.
The Harrison Matile, right? Him
Yeah.
being there, and dealing with the injury there. Those are key pieces. Those were like key acquisitions that we talked about in the offseason that we thought were going to be impact players that obviously they lost for the season. This becomes evident when, and not coincidence, that as soon as they start to make those substitutions and
Mhm.
start bringing out some of those key players, i.e., Riekert Hatting coming out, i.e., Davy Kutzer coming out, we see the wave of that change that happens, um, where a team can capitalize. And that's exactly what New England seemed to do. As
Yeah.
soon as some of those key pieces were out of the 15 that were on the field, the drop off was quite significant for Seattle, at least it felt like.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And it's always been a thing with the Seawolves. Alan Clark loves his guys. I think probably part of the reason why JP Smith is always playing on the wing. But fairness to him, they were supposed to have Rufus McLean. I don't know where the hell he is. I'm not too
Hmm.
bothered he's not playing an MLR. Matthias Douglas, the
Hmm.
US qualified Italian under 20 player, he never turned up, I think, because of a visa. Those are two wingers.
Yeah.
Um, but you know they've had all kinds of mishmash lineups. You've had Andre Warner playing at fly half, but he loves his guys to the point where there is a bit of a chasm between the starting 15 and the reserves. You know,
Yeah.
Mason Pedersen, prop, played a full 80 minutes in this game.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't really understand. He and the team of the week selection, like he played well, but is
Yeah.
there a need for that? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I mean, again, you contrast that with teams that are being successful, i.e., obviously the litmus test is always going to be the Chicago Hounds, but like
their
there's no drop
rotation
off.
is
You
crazy.
you
Actually,
don't notice anything.
they have only got two players that have played in every single game this season. One of them is Videla, who's started three, been on the bench
Yeah.
for six. They are masters of this rotation at the
Yeah.
minute, and there doesn't seem to be any drop off at
Yeah.
all.
Which as rugby fans and if you follow other leagues around the world, like how key those
Yeah.
substitutions can be and difference makers that those can be, um that I think is not compared in any other sport. Like I
Hmm.
had a coach growing up. You talk about, he didn't really like using the word subs because some guys just are impact players when they have that
Finishes
ability.
or something like that, was
E-
it?
Exactly, exactly. So, something that was evident in this one, obviously Seattle coming away with the win,
Hmm.
but something that was highlighted against the Free Jacks here as they
While we're on the
push to make things a lot closer.
while we're on the subject of weird selections, Andrew Quattrin's first game of the season, and he's at prop.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
up with that?
I have no idea what's going on there. I feel like the hype train has been going ever since those
Balakana,
were announced. Yeah.
still haven't seen him. Like you got one chance, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
who knows what's going behind the scenes in terms
yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah.
fitness and I guess just the assimilation you would expect because they were with the team last year. I have no idea, but it very, very, very um curious to know what's happening
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and I will just to kind of finish off on this. The the Seawolves very obviously do not want the Free Jacks to get into the playoffs because they just had possession. Well, we'll kick at the posts just to deny them the
Yeah.
losing bonus point.
Yeah.
That was quite funny. I thought just to be like, yeah,
Yeah.
screw you guys, not a
Hey,
chance.
every point matters. And if there's a deep running rivalry with the teams at least that we have
Yeah.
remaining, the Seawolves and the Free Jacks is definitely one that has
The
been
problem with the
long.
Free Jacks winning so much in the last three years is everyone's out to get you.
Yeah, yeah. For pun intended, I guess, a storm or a rivalry has been brewing among them. And coffee cup, you got what I'm saying there?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, all right. That
Jeez.
aside, though, fantasy MLR wise, Patty Ryan,
Yeah,
what a player. I
he's been
mean,
brilliant this year.
come on, man. He is actually finishes off in terms of the fantasy weeks that are in play, with this being the championship wrap up, as the number one fantasy MLR player in 2026 with 114.4 fantasy points. It's been electric. 18 tackles, comes off with the 15 tackles there. Add that with the 32 meters gaining, almost got too hyped about. And then two tries in this one. Um, Incredible. Patty Ryan is been electric.
Yeah, he's been very very good actually. In the I think it was the MLR Discord there was a Aaron Castro put in like Paddy Ryan is probably the best player in the league this season, and I said I'm not sure about best player, probably top three.
Yeah,
Gonzalo Bertrand exists. Hello.
yeah, yeah.
But
He's there. He's
he's
definitely
top three. I'd put
yeah.
him. He's had
Been
and it has been fairly underrated. I'll say,
a hundred
even though
percent, a hundred
even though he
percent.
has whatever six tries or whatever it is.
I picked him off the waiver wire in like round
Yeah,
two. Like that's how under the wires is. A couple other guys,
crazy.
Devon Rousseau, I would say officially breaks the TFR curse as a consensus number one overall pick this last, or I should say this season. Finishes off in the top three with a 12.5 point performance in this one, and then
Even playing center
lastly.
most of the season.
Yep. Andre Warner, 10.4 fantasy points for him. New England Free Jacks side of things, if it wasn't for Stephen Cripp, Mitch Wilson would be right up there in our TFR team of the week. 21.7 fantasy points for him. We talked about Keenan Higgins, 13.7. Ben Lesage's beautiful try gives him
Hmm.
12.8. Wrap that up with Nathan Salmon and Jamison Fa'anana Schultz, both in the 11-point range
Oh, Salmon
there.
was with a yellow card as well. That's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, pretty solid there. Pretty solid performers from the week. So just to go over TFR team of the week players here: front rower Theo Furry and second row Tavita Nicali from that DC Chicago Hounds match. In the California Legion Anthem Rugby Carolina match, Gonzalo Bertranu, Nick Chan, and Stefan Krimp are your halfback, center, and back three teams of the week, respectively. And then Patty Ryan, our back row team of the week player from the Seawolves Free Jacks game. We finish off this episode, James, though, with this. 1 week left in the MLR 2026 regular season. One spot remaining in the fantasy, in the MLR 2026 playoffs. I don't want to go through all of the possible scenarios that we could have coming into
Yeah,
this week.
no,
I'll just lay out
take
the
a while.
matches that we have. DC versus Anthem Rugby Carolina, New England versus Chicago, Seattle versus California. I'll leave it with this question, James. You give me, obviously three of those teams already locked up, but give me the order that you think that the playoffs are going to finish after this weekend.
Okay, number one is fairly straightforward.
I agree with you. I'll go Chicago as well.
Chicago. Then I think the Legion, they're peaking at
Yep,
the
I
right
agree.
time. Then Seattle, because they can't finish any lower in the third. And
Yep.
then fourth place, the final playoff spot, I think. Anthem, no, I think it will be Old Glory DC. Because of
I
the strength of schedule left, the Free Jacks have to play Chicago. DC play Anthem, which is they teed that up very nicely. And
yeah.
I don't think that Anthem have it, unfortunately.
How free Jacksian would it be for
Oh,
them to
incredibly. It is
beat
going to happen.
Chicago in the last week to deny their perfect season and book their ticket, and then further go on a playoff run to then go and
I, I,
possibly do?
I can see it happening, and I'm still terrified of it. I'm not ruling them out until it's physically
Uh,
impossible. But
yeah.
if the Free Jacks lose, MLR wins, in my opinion. We need a new winner.
Yeah, it's crazy thing about. But I think I agree with you there. Old Glory DC, I think is going to end up in that last playoff spot there. But I guess we'll find out either way. again, fun weekend of matches to break down there as always, James. Again, Maddie and I will be back later this week to preview those matches to come, and also we do bring on our Fantasy Ruckers OG League champions. That is the rugby wrap-up team of Matt McCarthy and Zach Lanning. Make sure to check that out.
Bitterness in your voice, then, Ryan. Bitterness.
Just a little bit. But until then, make sure again to go check out James and all his great content at NA Rugby DB socials, and obviously his website, narugbydb.com. For another The Rucking Rundown episode, though, for James, I'm Ryan, and we'll see you again next week on another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.